Hi everyone. I want to reflect back on my 2 Namibia trips in this video. In this video I'm going to tell you what worked for me and what didn't work. What worked better in the second trip than in the first trip. Well, let's start at the first trip. The first trip I was very inexperienced, bought a whole lot of things. We booked in time, jumped in our vehicles, and we were off. All our passports and paperwork and everything were in place. I would say one of the major mistakes I made was our schedule in Namibia. On our first trip, the schedule was jam-packed. I mean, we would drive. The biggest thing is, where the problem started was the travel time in Namibia is a lot longer than the travel time in South Africa. So once we crossed the border, we spend a lot of time on the road, a lot more than we thought we would, because I divided our trip into 300 to 400 kilometers per day, sometimes 500 kilometers per day. And where you can travel at 120 kilometers per hour in South Africa, in Namibia you can travel maximum 100 kilometers an hour on a tar road, and when you're on a gravel road, a safe speed would be 80 kilometers an hour. So, and then obviously you stop and you look and you whatever. So we spend a lot more time on the road than I initially thought we would. And that caused, because I mean, in the morning you've got to pack up camp, have breakfast, and you've got to do 400 or 500 kilometers, and you've got to unpack everything every time, right? So I think I spoke about this in one of my previous videos, that our trip was just too hectic. There's too many things in a row. So on the second trip, I took that as a mistake. So on the second trip, I made the distances shorter and more days per site, which worked very, very well. So that was one of my mistakes. Spend at least 2 to 3 days at one place and keep your distances short. Then on my first trip, I went with my Isuzu KB280 double cab, pickup truck for the Americans, bakkie for the South Africans, and I don't know what the rest of the world call this, but I mean, I'll put a picture of it here. It was, for the kids at the back, they were still small, it was okay, but it was cramped. So a double cab with 4 people in, with long distances, not a good idea. One major pain in my backside was loading everything out the canopy every time, because the only way you can get the stuff out is through the back. And we were packed. It was the tent, it was a cooler box, which is the biggest, the Peltier crystal cooler boxes is the biggest load of rubbish I've ever seen in my life. I mean, the thing, I just didn't work for me. That was another mistake, but I'll explain now what I did with the fridge on the second trip. Let me do it now, then it's done. With the second trip, I bought myself a National Lunar proper mobile fridge, which is the answer. Don't go with a cooler box. And the reason why you need the fridge is that in between towns in Namibia, there's nothing. So, and the chances, we got to about 2 or 3 towns where, I mean, they were just simply out of stock of meat. There was no meat. So although you can't take meat across the border, or you can take some certain types of meat, but you rely on the way that the official interprets the law at that moment. So if you get a difficult guy and you do have meat with you, you know, you're going to probably have to leave the meat with him. And the question is, how long do you want to spend trying to argue? I mean, you're on holiday. You don't want to stand and argue. So when you cross the border, don't take meat. It is just going to make your life unpleasant. You run the risk of that. So anyway, when you in Namibia and you get to a shop and you have to buy, you see meat, buy the meat. Put it in your fridge and you can always use that. We also took tin food because of unforeseen things that might happen. And you don't need to take a lot, but at least something for every second day when it comes to tin food. So fridge was definitely the answer. As far as my second trip, as far as loading and unloading goes, with my second trip, I bought myself a Mitsubishi Pajero and sold the Isuzu, and I fitted a roof rack. Now, Mitsubishi, the Pajero, is a wonderful vehicle. I mean, I didn't buy it new, it's a second-hand one, and I got it very dirt cheap. I fitted the front runner roof rack. With roof racks, you must be very careful, because if you buy a cheap roof rack and it breaks, the reason why you pack the stuff on the roof is because you don't have space in the vehicle. Some of the roads are bad, shaky. So if you have a cheap roof rack on your roof and it breaks, there's no way you're going to fix it next to the road. So you're going to stuff everything inside your car. Now in my case, I had the water can on top. It's 45 liters of water. I had 2 jerry cans, which was empty most of the time, but I took it with, for in case I needed to take extra diesel, then I could if I need to. And then all our mattresses were on there, sleeping bags, tent, all those things. Right, now picture this. Now you ride down the road and your roof rack breaks. Now you've got to stuff all of that into the car. So a cheap roof rack, definitely not the answer. But to come back, roof rack, a lot easier than loading the vehicle only from behind, because that made me mad, because every time we need food is right in front. You've got to unpack everything. You need the tent, unpack everything. So that was a major pain in the backside. Loading the vehicle with a roof rack, you can load the vehicle, well, from 3 sides, because I mean obviously your arms are not long enough to load it from the front, but from 3 sides, which made it a lot easier. So you could walk next to the vehicle, pick it up, put it on. So that was a lot easier. I didn't take a trailer with, because when you drive in sand, and you can look at many videos on YouTube, if you drive in sand, it's always the guy with the trailer that gets stuck every time. If they can get stuck, it's the guy with the trailer that gets stuck. So I don't like trailers, and that's the reason why I took the roof rack, because I said, well, instead of buying a trailer, get a roof rack and you've got nothing dragging behind. Which is true. If I were going to drive long distance in sand, in the desert for days on end, definitely roof rack. What I didn't take in consideration was the amount of wind resistance, my aerodynamics of the vehicle. I could feel that there was definitely drag on the vehicle, and I felt it in my pocket as well, because I had to fork out a lot more money for fuel. So I said to myself on my next trip, because look, I'm going to take a trailer, because in our case, we drove from one site to the other site, and then when we went into Sossusvlei, where there was a lot of sand, we would leave everything in the campsite and then go out and then come back. So in other words, if I had a trailer with me, I wouldn't have had to drag it all over the place through the sand, whatever. So because that's how my second trip worked out. So if I go again, definitely take a trailer with, because loading stuff on top is definitely harder to just put it into something here. And I think also with the weight of the trailer would be less than the wing drag we actually had on the vehicle. So that is another lesson learned. I've spoken about the crossing borders. I mean, just be polite. I try and get to the border always early in the morning, because then everybody is fresh and you can just handle the situation better, because late in the afternoon everybody's fed up. You don't know who was there behind you. Maybe there was a bad guy, upset the guys, and now they're going to just prove to you, and they can prove to you that they are boss, because they are boss. And so, yeah, early in the morning, I always try and sleep close to the border, early in the morning border crossings. Now, my second trip, we went into Namibia at the bottom, drove through Namibia, and we came into Botswana and back down to South Africa. Every single border crossing was no problem whatsoever. Early in the morning, cross. I don't think we spent an hour at each crossing. The sands in Sossusvlei, like I said, I didn't take the trailer with. Beautiful place, Sossusvlei, very nice. What I did, and it's a good tip, what I did was parked with the locals, because they've got like tours that rides in and out the Sossusvlei for those guys that don't have the 4x4. And I spoke to the guys there and I asked them about tire pressure and things like that. And as I was deflating my tires, there's a guy with a Land Rover Discovery, I think it was, yeah. And I just saw him motor past, and I thought, well, if that guy can drive there with his Land Rover Discovery without letting the tires down, then it's going to be a walk in the park for me. And as we got around about the first corner, this Land Rover was sitting right down. So, lesson. It wasn't my lesson, it was his lesson. Do not drive into Sossusvlei with your tires hard. You will get stuck. Very important. Deflate those tires. There's service stations outside the Sossusvlei resort where you can re-inflate, so you don't have to drive with your tires obviously deflated. There's places, if you have your own pump, even better, but deflate the tires in sand. Otherwise, your trip is gonna be a lot longer than you anticipated. Other thing is just, the thing is that a lot of guys say that, that's something he still wants to do. Now, for me, because remember one thing, between cities and towns in Namibia, there's nothing. So there's nothing to spend money on. So fuel is your major expense, and accommodation is your other expense. Other than that, there is not much. The most important thing is to do it. You must just do it. Book it and go. I think that is the story. If you've got any questions, please put it in the comments below. If you find this video helpful, please click on the like button. Subscribe to my channel, because then you will know when I load my next video. Click on the little bell. I want to thank you for watching my video. I really do appreciate it. Till next time, bye bye.